Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Elaine Chang, and I'm with TaroWorks. I'm the Director of Market Development and Customer Success. Thanks to everybody who's joining today. We're really excited for today's webinar, where we're joined by World Bicycle Relief and Vera Solutions. So as background, for those of you who aren't familiar with TaroWorks, we're an offline mobile field service app on the Salesforce App Exchange. And we help nonprofits and social enterprise coordinate with their field agents working in areas with poor data connectivity. So people who need to use Salesforce but are working in largely offline areas. And so we do work with organizations who are creating impact, either nonprofits or social enterprises. And one thing that we've noticed is that impact isn't this nebulous thing that comes about by itself. Sometimes organizations are providing services, but oftentimes this impact is brought about by physical assets, like the provision of bicycles in this case, but it could be anything: solar lanterns, biodigesters, loaned farm equipment, and these all need to be tracked as well. So that's what we want to take a look at today. So delving into how they're doing this is the World Bicycle Relief Team. We have Alicia Myers, who's Director of Monitoring and Evaluation, and Lawrence Banda, who's the Monitoring and Evaluation Technical Advisor. And on the Vera Solution side, we have Hetile Mabunda, and they're calling in from between Cape Town and Lusaka. So before we get started, I am going to go through some housekeeping rules, but let me just launch a poll quickly to see who is in the audience that will help us as well. So let me launch that. Great. So feel free to kind of choose what bucket you fall into. So in terms of housekeeping rules, everybody is on mute by default. So if you have a question, please use the question section of the webinar platform. I'll be checking these throughout. We'll be saving the questions for the end, but if you have any clarification questions, please send them through. I will be monitoring it throughout the presentation. And then lastly, note that this presentation is being recorded. We'll be distributing the full recording and also a transcript or a recap afterwards on our blog at TaroWorks.org. So great, let me stop this poll. Great. Very, very cool. Looks like a lot of people are interested in tracking impact and all across the board interested in World Bicycle Relief's work and to track items. Well, I think you've come to the right place. Let me hide this, come back to the presentation. Okay, I think we're set here, so I'm going to turn it over to Alicia to introduce us to World Bicycle Relief. Alicia, are you there?
Yes, thanks, Elaine.
Great.
Great. All right, fantastic. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about our organization. World Bicycle Relief mobilizes people through the power of bicycles. So our mission is empowering change, and we envision a world where distance is no longer a barrier to independence and livelihood. So what we've learned over the years is that a high quality bicycle in rural areas really helps improve livelihoods, education, and health care outcomes. A bicycle, just a simple tool, connects people to markets and schools and health cares, and really allows people to accomplish much more in their day than they would walking. So we were founded in 2005. And we build and distribute a rugged bicycle that's specifically designed for these rural conditions. And these bicycles go to students and healthcare workers and basically any community member in a rural area. And I'll tell you a little bit more about our model in a couple of slides, but it's a unique model that is both philanthropic and social enterprise. And this really is allowing us to scale our solution. So this is a picture of the Buffalo bicycle. So named after the mighty African buffalo. It's a simple bicycle. It's locally assembled in our country offices and our country assembly facilities. It's durable. And one unique feature is it has a rear carrier you can see on the back that allows people to carry up to 100 kgs. So it's, again, really a workhorse made for rural areas for people to carry heavy loads. And it was specifically designed for this type of terrain and this context. So you can see here some very happy students who were recipients of the bicycle through our philanthropic program. And this photo is from Malawi. And I'll tell you just a little bit more about the difference in the two arms of our organization. A little bit about where we work. Last year we were in Colombia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, Zambia, Zimbabwe. So you can see we have a global footprint in terms of our programs as well as our fundraising offices, which we've got highlighted in black there. And to date, since 2005, we've done close to 4,500 bicycles. And that's a combination of our philanthropic bicycles, where the bicycles are donated, as well as social enterprise bicycles where they're sold. And to complement our program, we also train mechanics. So to date, we have trained 2,201 mechanics. So just a little bit about our model. It's sustainable and scalable as we see it. We've got two arms, the social enterprise and the philanthropic arm. And the social enterprise means that the bicycle and spare parts can be purchased by individuals and organizations, and these sales help to sustain our programs. And our philanthropic arm allows targeted individuals to receive the bicycle to overcome the distance barrier. So our primary program is rural school children living more than 3 kilometers from school are eligible to receive a bicycle to help them cycle to school, which we've seen as improved educational outcomes. But we also provide the bicycle to health workers as well that are doing community work to help improve health outcomes in their local communities. So the combination of the philanthropic and the social enterprise activities have built the foundation for a scalable solution for rural communities, helping them to overcome the barrier of distance through a simple bicycle. So I'll be talking today, and we'll speak a bit further about BEEP. And BEEP is our Bicycles for Educational Empowerment program. So it's the philanthropic arm of our organization, focused on education and using bicycles as a tool to keep children in school. So we know that education is really key to ending cycles of disease and poverty, and sometimes one of the biggest barriers to children getting to school and staying in school is distance. We know locations where children are walking 10, 15 kilometers to get to school. And by the time they get to school, they're tired, they don't have a lot of energy, and the bicycle is meant to help them get to school on time, as well as accomplish other things in the evenings and weekends that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do because of distance, or that take quite a bit of time. So through the program, students are provided bicycles, as well teachers, and volunteers. And what's very important about our program is it's community-led. So we have bicycle supervisory committees that are appointed to help manage the bicycles at school level. We want to ensure the bicycles remain sustainable. So as I mentioned, we train field mechanics, and we also provide spare parts to the schools for bicycle repairs over time. And then we also integrate a study-to-own contract. So the study-to-own contract are contracts that the students sign that they'll maintain the bicycle, they'll care for the bicycle, and they'll use the bicycle for the intended purpose. And that serves as their motivation and incentive to keep them in school. So we find these components are really important to the sustainability of the program, as well as the bicycle. And we see over the short term, students are able to get to school faster, have more energy, and in the longer term, we know that a student that completes their education they're now prepared to take on roles in society, and thereby reducing the likelihood of poverty. So our core focus in this program is really the bicycle and mobilizing the community to support the program and enabling students living far to get to school. So some of the key outcomes that we're measuring through the BEAT program are around actual student performance. So looking at the attendance of the students at school, how they're performing, so their grades and how they're performing on their tests. A sense of empowerment. We target 70% of the bicycles to go to girl students, 30% to boys. And in particular, we want to see empowerment of girl students to stay in school. And using this bicycle as a tool to motivate them to stay in school and also to motivate their families to keep them in school. And retention is an important component of that. So we see by providing the bicycles that students are also retained in school. We're also measuring accountability. So I talked a little bit before about the Bicycle Supervisory Committee. They're trained, they receive 5 days of training. We want to make sure that they're fulfilling their roles in terms of managing the bicycles. So they also have some forms that they're completing for us that help capture their monthly activities. Durability, that's specific to the bicycle and the spare parts. We want to know how the bicycles are faring. In some cases, a student might have a bicycle for 3 to 5 years before they graduate, and we want to make sure that those bikes are sustainable and they're being used. So we are measuring this through a service log and then also conversations with our mechanics. And finally, sustainability, looking at the overall impact of the program over time. So, what is the situation before the students and the school receive the bicycles? What's the situation after? And how does this compare to schools that don't have bicycles? So those are our key outcomes that we're looking at through this program. So the need for the solution. What led us to work together with Vera Solutions and learn more about the TaroWorks platform were basically 3 key needs that we identified over time as the organization grew and as our M&E system evolved. And the first one is bicycle tracking. So if you'll see from the diagram here, the bicycles are manufactured in Taiwan. They go to our countries of operation. They're assembled there and they're in the Buffalo warehouse. They leave the warehouse and then they head to schools for the bicycle distribution ceremony, which Lawrence will talk a little bit about later. And then you see at the bottom the outcomes that we're measuring around the bicycle at school level, these educational outcomes, and then the student outcomes. But what we realized is that once those bicycles left the warehouse, we didn't have much information on them. We knew through a paper-based system the student that would receive them, so that's great for accountability purposes, but we weren't able to track the bicycles over time. So looking at the condition of the bicycles and if there were any product-related issues or spare parts, so we didn't have any information, and we saw that as a big gap in our M&E system in terms of making sure that those bicycles serve their intended purpose for a period of time. So that's the first key reason. The second is lack of access to schools and improved data management, and I'll talk about that just now. So you can see our trucks leaving the warehouse. This picture's from Zimbabwe, heading out to the field to deliver the bicycles to a school. So that's where we were starting to lose information once they left the warehouse. So the second need is access to schools. So for example, in 2018, we reached about 169 schools in 4 countries. And we've seen as the program grows, it's been increasingly difficult to visit and monitor activities at all the schools, which are located in very rural areas. So through our paper-based data collection and entry, we are using scanning, we were trying to get the forms, chasing them down, and the increased volume of bicycles in the schools, in the field, as well as the schools, made it very difficult to capture this data and get it in a timely manner. And obviously, as we know with paper, there's a lot of data loss from forms and transcription. It can be quite time consuming, inconsistent, prone to errors. And so TaroWorks provided a mobile data collection platform solution that was robust and helped us to connect with these schools, which we were having trouble reaching in these very rural areas. And also, from an environmental perspective, reducing paper wastage, and as you can see in this drawer, helping to reduce just all of these paper forms that build up over time. And finally, the third solution that we found our new system addresses is improved data management. So meet Ivy. Ivy is our research assistant based in Lusaka, Zambia. And her job is to capture M&E data. And you can see Ivy has her hands full. So again, as the system grew, there was just an enormous amount of paper that needed to be filed and entered. And obviously there can be security issues around that as well. So this is where Salesforce came in. We had a Salesforce data management system, but we wanted to evolve it further. We wanted to build on this existing platform. Within our organization, the finance and the fund development teams use Salesforce, so we thought let's expand this for purposes of M&E. This ensures easier system integration in the future, as well as the use of compatible applications. So that led us to seeking support from Vera Solutions.
Great, thanks so much for that introduction, laying out the picture, Alicia. At this point, I'm going to transition to Hetile. Hetile, are you there?
Yes, hi everyone.
Great. Hetile, take it away for how you implemented the system.
Thank you. So just to give a brief overview, Vera is a global social enterprise and we're also a certified B Corporation. And we're really driven by our desire to amplify the impact of the social sector. And we do that using cloud and mobile technology. We work with many different nonprofits of varying sizes and different geographic areas. Yes, as you'll see, we worked with over 275 organizations in over 50 countries. And we really want to deliver solutions that save you time, money, and many headaches. So our implementation with WBR wasn't our first engagement with them. We worked together previously to start building out the M&E system. And as the organization grew and their needs grew, we got together again, and this time in collaboration with TaroWorks to deliver their mobile data collection tool and build up the Salesforce side to accommodate the data that they'd be pushing into Salesforce. And then just to touch on the Vera process, when working with different organizations, the different phases that we go through can be described as follows. So we have discovery and design, which is mainly just figuring out what the organization's needs are and making sure that we're in agreement about what they need. Then we move over to configuration and development, where we actually start building out the system. We give the organizations opportunities to test and then we train them. And finally, we have rollout support. So we don't just hand over the system and say, go ahead. We actually help the organization through the entire process and rolling it out to the entire organization. Then for WBR specifically, as I mentioned before, they had an existing system which was tracking all their beneficiaries and some of the bicycle distribution. But it was a really big challenge for them to get the data into the system. As you saw, they were relying on a lot of paper. And when the system was originally designed in 2015, TaroWorks was still in its infancy. And it was a complex process to get data collected from ODK forms into Salesforce. So in the interim, we actually had a custom page to upload data to their system, which was time consuming and a bit challenging. Then towards the end of 2017, we took a step back and reassessed the system that we had set up and started exploring different ways for them to enter data into their system offline. And that is when TaroWorks came up. we realized that they needed a really robust, unique identifier system so they could track individuals and bicycles over time. And this is where the barcode scanning functionality started to surface in our discussions. So I'll hand over back to Alicia to talk more about the system in action now and how they're currently using it.
Great, so our system in action. So here we've got Ivy again, and Ivy is busy in the field, working together with our Bicycle Supervisory Committee, using the TaroWorks system on a tablet to scan a bicycle. So basically in the field, our workflow is as follows. We have two primary users of TaroWorks. We have a school user, and then we also have the M&E specialists. So in terms of at school level, schools meeting the criteria for using TaroWorks are issued with tablets. They then appoint an authorized user who manages TaroWorks at school level. They're responsible to enter data on a monthly basis. That includes data on the students as well as the bicycle. And those schools are supported by our M&E specialists who are typically based in a large city or the capital. But also the M&E specialists are using TaroWorks for data capture in the field. So for example, during a bicycle distribution ceremony, which Lawrence will talk about a little bit later. So Lawrence will talk a bit about what we're tracking through TaroWorks in our M&E system.
Thanks, Alicia, and hi everyone. So what we have here is all the different types of data that we are tracking as part of our routine monitoring of program activities. So you can see we are capturing records on bicycle allocation to students, bicycle usage, repair and maintenance, activities of the Bicycle Supervisory Committee, student records on performance and attendance, and a number of indicators about the schools that we are working with. So for the MDC schools, that's the schools that are using TaroWorks, we were able to build customized data collection forms in TaroWorks pertaining to all these indicators that we are tracking. And all the data in these MDC schools is captured through TaroWorks and sent to our Salesforce system. And once we have all the data in the system, we are now able to utilize the reporting and also analytics capability of the system to generate reports and also create dashboards based on those reports. And we can see a sample of some of the dashboards. Yeah, so that's just a sample of the dashboard showing the bicycle usage and also the percentage of bicycles which are checked for during preventative maintenance. And we also can see the bicycle service status. And we can also generate reports on bicycle students, student attendance and student performance. And we also can generate reports that relate to the tracking of bicycle maintenance. And that's, for example, the common repairs that are taking place, and also the repair period, which is the period in terms of the number of days between the date when the bike was booked for repair and the date when it was actually repaired. So these are just samples of the dashboards that we are able to generate based on the data that is sent through TaroWorks to the Salesforce system. Now, so one of the TaroWorks functionalities that has proven critical to our routine program activities has been the barcode functionality. And what we have experienced so far is that this functionality has really simplified our processes and our workflow, which also means time saving. It has also eliminated errors associated with the manual process, which has therefore contributed to the quality of our data. So we have two key program activities for which we are utilizing this functionality. And the first one is when it comes to assigning bicycles to program participants. So a bicycle is assigned to a program participant through the bicycle serial number. And this is normally done at a distribution ceremony. And all they need to do is to scan the bicycle barcode using the phone using the phone camera, and the bicycle serial number is captured and linked to the name of a particular program participant. And what is interesting is how this process has been simplified, because previously when the bicycle serial number was being captured manually, this process was quite tedious and would take a great deal of time. So, and we could, during the pilot, we could actually estimate, for example, if you have 50 bicycles, when they are using the barcode scanning, you find that 50 bicycles could be allocated to all the different beneficiaries within 30 minutes. And well, the same 50 bicycles, if they are they're entering manually the serial number, which is a 15-digit serial number for a bicycle, you find that it would take more than 2 hours to just allocate 50 bicycles. So this shows how this process has been really made much easier. And it has, in general, it has really helped to streamline the whole process during the bicycle distribution ceremony. As you can see these pictures, the bicycle distribution ceremony is activity packed. So you have, it's quite a busy ceremony, and having this functionality has really helped the whole process. So the second activity for which we are using barcode scanning is when it comes to tracking bicycle maintenance. So through the bicycle service job in TaroWorks, the field mechanic is able to retrieve a particular bicycle record by scanning the barcode of that bicycle. And the mechanic can then make an update to that bicycle record and also indicate whether the maintenance is complete or it's still in progress, whatever the status may be. So as you can see there, that's just a sample of the whole process of bicycle scanning. And okay, so we can see in the slide which shows, for example, when the field mechanics opens that bicycle service job, you see there, they'll see a list of all the bicycles that are assigned to that school. And when they scan, they'll retrieve that record, and they're able to see some of the information in terms of maybe the status of the maintenance, the date the repair was identified, the date the service was completed, and so on. And based on this, we are able to, for example, generate reports such as the ones that we've seen, which shows the period in terms of the number of days between the date when the bicycles the repair was identified and the date when the repair was actually completed.
Thanks, Lawrence. I think you can see from the photos, as Lawrence mentioned, the distribution ceremonies are very busy activities. There's a high level of excitement. There are a lot of people. And by introducing the barcode functionality, I think it's fun for our bicycle supervisory committees, but it also enables them to move through their process much faster of allocating bicycles to students through the simple scanning of the barcode. So some of the tips that we've picked up from use of this at the school level would be one, ensuring that the barcodes are visible and easy to locate. So when we first started scanning the barcodes, they were on the top tube of the bicycle, which is an area where the students are kind of climbing on and off the bike and subject to wear and tear. So we found over time that those barcodes were wearing off and therefore limiting the functionality, particularly for mechanics, to pull up records and update records on the bicycles. So we actually had a whole process where we worked together with our product development team. They communicated with our team in Taiwan, and we changed the location of the barcode so that it would be protected from this sort of wear and tear that we noticed on the top tube. So ensuring that the barcodes are visible and easy to locate is important. A second tip that we learned from this process is that ensuring the barcodes are long-lasting. So some sort of protective covering so that they don't tear or peel off easily. Even putting them under the kind of the coating of the glaze in the bicycles. So it's very important that, again, if you're going to use the barcode functionality for tracking over time and repeated scanning, that it's protected and from wear and tear. Training. Training was absolutely key to success and quite interesting to us because we had to start the training with basic use on a smartphone. So our bicycle supervisory committees were just ecstatic to really learn how to use more functionality on the phones. A lot of times people are just sending text messages or WhatsApping. But in the training, we went through, how to take good photographs, how to enter information into the contacts, because we hope to use these phones and tablets at the schools for more than just TaroWorks. But really giving them a full overview of the features of the phone and the tablet was really helpful to them, then understanding how to apply it for use of the barcode, and particularly the camera function, because that's what you're using to scan the barcode. We also found it was really important to start with a pilot. So before we even launched into the rebuild of our system, we piloted TaroWorks at just 1 or 2 schools to see if it was going to meet our needs. And then when we had the system rebuild and integrated TaroWorks on top of Salesforce, we started with a limited number of schools, so we would be able to closely monitor the uptake and the integration of technology at school level, be able to monitor workflows, be able to monitor just, the concept of having a fairly, not expensive, but valuable asset at the school. So we found that was very important to start small before scale up. And then documenting and sharing learning, so to be able to share within our organization what we're doing, as well as externally as we're doing now. So that was also very important to the process. And then finally, continuous improvement. So just learning from our experience in the field and looking at how to improve things. Even the workflow, what works best? Do you scan the bicycles before they leave the warehouse and then assign them to students? Do you do it at the ceremony? Where should the students stand? Where should the bicycles be? So we had to keep revisiting the workflow at field level and continue to improve it so that we would achieve the greatest efficiencies. So that took time, and it works in different ways in different countries. But I think overall with that experience, again, we've built a very solid foundation on which we can now scale the program and the solution, because we have these learnings. So that continuous improvement's been very critical. And then finally, just engagement of program participants. So I'll speak a little bit about that now. Yeah, so through community participation, we've seen that it's very important to have the schools involved in the bicycle supervisory committee at every stage. So, making sure that they feel ownership, not only of the technology, but also the function of monitoring and evaluation. So previously we would have a staff member going to the school, trying to collect attendance records, trying to collect beneficiary distribution lists, you know, following up with them. But now with a tablet at the school, that responsibility rests with our bicycle supervisory committee. So they're now empowered to manage M&E from a school level, and you know, excited to have that opportunity, in particular to have the technology. And to empower them with the technology was also, as I mentioned before, quite interesting. And I think it served as a motivator. So, you know, schools have to meet criteria to use TaroWorks at school and to be issued with a tablet. And they were just very excited about it. And, you know, every school wants to have the tablet to be able to help support the program, but also I think, you know, engage with technology in a new and different way. So that ownership of the process and the program monitoring is, you know, really key to this, and achieved through the community participation on the part of the bicycle supervisory committees. And you can see them being trained in this photo here. Just overall benefits of the mobile data collection platform, TaroWorks, and our Salesforce system in general. It's increased in accountability. So at a school level, you know, when you're chasing paper forms, there are stories of the forms being lost, or there weren't enough photocopies, or somebody misplaced it, or. And with the TaroWorks, there's a greater sense of accountability. We can call the schools, we can look in the system and say, hey, we haven't seen your forms, what's happened? So it gives us that direct line of communication and accountability with the schools for capture of the M&E data. In terms of our M&E specialists' use of the phone, they're also using TaroWorks even at the office level to enter TaroWorks. So again, it's streamlined the process and allowed us to be able to track in the system whether or not the data have been entered, and if not, identify what those problems are. Secondly, this access to real-time data for improvements in quality. Again, with the paper system, we were waiting 3 months to be able to get the forms from the school. And with the TaroWorks, it's immediate. And with this immediate access to the data, we can now target schools. So as Lawrence was speaking about preventative maintenance and use of the barcode scanning by the mechanics, we can see where is preventative maintenance happening. You know, our target is that it should be at 80 to 100% of our schools. And if we see 1 month that preventative maintenance or through the system that only took place at 50 schools, that allows us to immediately identify those schools that need to be followed up by phone call and possibly a visit to identify what the issue is. So it's really been invaluable to have this real-time data for improvements in quality. And we hope to then link that to, you know, dissemination of our activities to a broader audience. So for example, being able to report on some key outcomes on our website that we would be capturing through the TaroWorks schools. So that's where we definitely want to go in the future. I spoke a little bit about targeted M&E based on performance. So the ability to identify where there's a problem and follow up on that problem. Obviously, time saving, we've spoken about that. We don't have this time lag getting the paper forms from the field. Improved workflow. So, for example, with the beneficiary distribution list, TaroWorks has changed our workflow. It used to be that the list of students to receive bicycles would be verified maybe a day or two before the ceremony. There might be some changes the day of. And now with the use of TaroWorks, we need to receive those beneficiary names up to about 2 weeks before the ceremony, so that we can load them in the system. And that way you just retrieve the record to scan the bicycle when it's assigned. So receipt of those lists sooner has enabled our teams to also check and verify that, you know, 70% of the recipients are girls, ensure that all students are living far from school. So it just allows us another check and a more thorough verification of the data before the bicycle ceremony. So I think in that sense, TaroWorks has helped improve that particular workflow. And then obviously it's just a user-friendly application and it makes it a bit fun. So rather than, you know, copying a 15-digit serial number and all the signatures and the name writing and all the details that go along with it, you know, we can upload all that information in the system prior to the ceremony and just focus at the time of the event on scanning the bicycles as we assign them to students. Great. So additional learnings and scale up that we'd want to share with everyone. It would be that we establish specific criteria for selection. So the schools, not all schools are eligible to receive TaroWorks. We wanted to make sure we'd been working with the school for at least a year, that the school was well managed, that it's motivated. Even though TaroWorks does have offline capabilities, we also wanted to make sure, at least for the first round, that there was some access to 2, 3, or 4G at school level. So these sorts of things, even looking at how papers are filed at the school, all of these helped us determine which schools should receive TaroWorks first as a motivator, and also a reward for good performance. And also that we wouldn't start out with TaroWorks with a brand new school that's implementing BEEP for the first time. They have some experience with the program, and they can also see the value of TaroWorks and helping them report and monitor what's happening at school level. So making sure we have that sort of relationship with the school before we introduce the tablets. I spoke a little bit about the quality and location of barcodes, so that's quite important. It was quite important learning. And in terms of workflow, also, you know, making sure within your own organization that the workflow has been agreed upon. This example I just gave of the list being submitted 2 weeks before, we had to make sure the program team was on board with that this was possible to do, and that everybody would be able to support that process. So we did have some learnings around that, making sure any changes to workflow brought upon by TaroWorks had been agreed and discussed with the whole team and was deemed feasible. In terms of scale up, we're really pleased with our Salesforce system as well as the benefits that we've witnessed from TaroWorks at school level. So what we've decided is to switch from a tablet. We were using a kind of fairly large size tablet for the TaroWorks application, and we thought let's look at something a bit smaller that's a bit more bit less costly, that would allow us to scale up to even more schools. So in our next phase of scale up, we're going to look at using a mobile phone versus a tablet, so we'll be able to reach more schools. Also look at transitioning to TaroWorks. So even though it's a very user-friendly application, look at, you know, first distributing the phones at the school and having them get familiar with using the phones for communication, for taking photos, for WhatsApping, etc., as an interim step before we introduce to TaroWorks. And our goal this year is to expand it to at least 10 new schools in each of our countries by fourth quarter, and then also be able to link the real-time data to our website. So that's where we're planning to go this year with the TaroWorks and the Salesforce.
Great.
And I think those are our key learnings. Mm-hmm.
Great. I think, Atila, you had some things to share as well.
Yes. So for us, it was really important that all the users are involved from design right until rollout. So Alicia and Lawrence were very involved, were very accessible to us. And then we also learned that just the power of testing and making sure that users aren't just, you know, flicking through it, but they're really giving feedback that then we can action and improve what we've built. And then making sure that we provided all the right documentation and resources so that Lawrence and Alicia felt really empowered to then implement the system with the rest of the team. And along with the documentation and resources, TaroWorks has really great online documentation in cases where you need to troubleshoot. Everything is readily available to users. We also had a lot of fun implementing the barcode functionality. We were just scanning everything. And I'm sure, as Alicia said, just using it in a different way is also really fun for end users.
That's funny. Great, thank you all. This is super interesting, and we just love the work that you're doing. So keep it up, and thanks for sharing this with everybody. So I want to kind of end with this. We did have a really fun field outing. So you see members of World Bicycle Relief, Vera Solutions, and TaroWorks all here. We were able to all meet outside of Lusaka around the ICT for D conference last year, and we'll actually all be at the ICT for D conference this year in Kampala in case anyone is also joining and would like to meet in person. Okay, so then on this note, please do get your questions in. I'll be moderating those. We did have a few questions come in already, so I'll start with those. I think, Alicia, you talked a little bit about some of the benefits that you've seen from this data, being able to gather this data. We have a question that is, has your data established any relationship between bicycle usage and school performance?
Good question. I think overall, the higher the usage at the school, the assumption, the proxy that we use is that high bicycle usage means higher attendance. So we're able to see that as students use the bicycles to get to school, the attendance overall tends to improve, as does punctuality. So previously where students were coming late, they're now coming on time. So then this tends to be reflected at school level. What's been interesting in general about the bicycles is the whole school tends to get motivated. So we see attendance and punctuality at a school level rise. But we definitely see a link between the bicycle usage and the attendance in performance, if that answers the question.
Great, thanks. Lawrence, can you talk a little bit about the internet connectivity in these schools? So for the wide variety of areas in which this technology is being used, what is the internet connectivity like?
Well, I think generally in all the schools where we are implementing TaroWorks, the connectivity is quite poor. I think we have 2G coverage, and there are a few schools that may have 3G, but generally the connectivity is quite poor. So I think the offline functionality where they're able to collect data and be able to sync when they have better connectivity is what is really helping the whole process.
Great. Clarification question, do you connect the school attendance systems into TaroWorks, or was this done as a separate system?
Yeah, I'll speak to that. It's a separate system, so not separate in that what happens is we typically sample students every term and look at their attendance and performance over that term. So the teachers use the actual registers at the school. So they have a register for tracking performance and a register for tracking attendance. They sample students that receive bicycles from the list, and then they enter their attendance and performance into TaroWorks and send it to the school. So we're not capturing data on all the students at a school level, but that's the primary data source for our attendance and monitoring form are the registers at the school.
Great. And I'm not sure if this is for Alicia or Hetile, but did you consider SMS as a communication tool instead of using TaroWorks and the internet? Or maybe a broader question is, what are all of the different options you considered?
I can speak to some of that. I mean, we use every form of communication possible. As we mentioned, most of the schools are quite rural, so phone calls. We have now WhatsApp groups for most of our schools versus SMS. They're using WhatsApp. We've got to visit them in person. We bring them together every term for a termly coordination meeting. So we've had to use everything, and I think they're complementary, the different communication methods. So if you need something quickly, you know, calling somebody or sending a WhatsApp, but the TaroWorks allows for, you know, more systematic monitoring. So we can set guidelines and say, you know, the student attendance monitoring form needs to be submitted by the 10th of the following month, or the bicycle supervisory committee monthly activity form needs to be submitted by the 5th of the following month. So, you know, with the routine data that's submitted, you know, we set parameters around that and timelines, and that's going into TaroWorks. But we also use, you know, phone and SMS and WhatsApp for just regular communication and troubleshooting. So that's also been kind of a lifeline to the school that allows us to have access to them. And also, you know, we load the data into the phone or the airtime so that we can also track and make sure that they have a way to communicate with us that's not costing them precious resources. I don't know if Lawrence would want to add to that.
Sorry, I missed part of the question, Alicia, so I think I lost my audio connectivity. Just
okay. That's okay. They were asking about SMS used to communicate with the schools, and I was saying we use SMS and WhatsApp messages, yeah, as well as the TaroWorks.
Sure.
Great. You had mentioned your use of Salesforce, and I think this question is about kind of what kind of insights you share back out to the field. Can you talk a little bit about how you use Salesforce or TaroWorks to present insights for your schools and the specialists so that they can take appropriate actions and do reviews?
Also a good question. I'll start, and Lawrence, feel free to jump in. So we see it as a two-way street. So the schools have the responsibility of inputting the data into the system, and then we have the responsibility of sharing that back with them. So we have termly coordination meetings. So in between school terms, when the students aren't there, we bring together our schools for, you know, just to discuss what's going well, what's not going well. And this is our opportunity to then share the reports back with the schools. We don't always have all the schools in a particular geographic location using TaroWorks, and that's where we want to go. But that's one way that we're using to feed back the data that they share with us.
And just to add on to that, TaroWorks also has the functionality so you can build out jobs where people can just view records that are already in the system. So in case they needed to update existing data or they just wanted to reference something that they had captured previously, TaroWorks allows them to actually tap into that data that's sitting in Salesforce.
Great. Here's a question about kind of the value of the automation. So it sounds like, you know, by using TaroWorks and Salesforce, you're automating processes, which seems to be a no-brainer. But in third world countries, sometimes the cost benefit of automation is not compelling enough because of the low cost of labor. What have you found?
I would say for us, you know, one of the decisions to integrate TaroWorks was looking at the overall value of the bicycles going to the school. So if we say on average a school gets 100 bicycles, and the cost that's associated with those bicycles as assets going to the school, investing in a tablet was a fraction of that. And so for us, the importance of that is getting the data that we need for, you know, program quality improvement, you know, as well as overall continuous improvement, as well as, you know, data for communications and PR and marketing and all of that. It made sense. And so we haven't replaced any individuals, for example, by using TaroWorks. We're kind of building on the foundation that's there. So, if we look at the cost of fuel and time and accommodation and all of the things required every time we send someone to the field, to visit a school that's 80 kilometers away from the district education office, that's quite expensive. And not that we have replaced that school level monitoring with TaroWorks, but we've just built in a system that helps us get the data that we need regularly and make more targeted decisions around where do we need to focus our energies. So we can see where a problem is, we can identify that problem, call the school, and if not, call our ministry partners to follow up or follow up ourselves. So we don't feel like we've replaced any individuals by using TaroWorks. We're just enhancing efficiencies, I would say.
Great. I have a question about adoption. It sounds like people were mostly excited about getting this new technology. I'm wondering if that was the case across the board, if there were any issues with adoption, and what you might suggest for others about how to get people excited.
Lawrence, do you want to speak to this?
So generally, I think across all the schools, the uptake of it was quite impressive. But I think when we officially rolled out the system, I think there were, of course, a few schools that were kind of would always require, someone to call them and remind them about the work that they will need to do in TaroWorks. But I think it all comes to how much they're involved at initial stages in terms of training, in terms of needs assessment, and yeah, just the preparation part of the whole process.
And maybe just to add, I think part of the adoption was, making sure we selected schools that we felt were eligible. So they, had shown that they were enthusiastic about the program. They might have had a good record already submitting M&E forms. The school was well managed. The parents were engaged. So we might have been slightly biased on our initial selection, but I think that really helped with adoption is, rewarding those good performing schools with TaroWorks, and then we'll have to look at how we structure that in the the scale up that we're planning this year. But that certainly, I think, factored in a bit.
Great. Great. I think we're at time. I'd like to kind of end with a final question. So that question is, is there anything that you would have done differently if you were to go through this process again? I think you went over tips, which is super helpful, but sort of a different take on that.
It's a good question. I mean, from my side, I think, what's been interesting to watch and maybe a little bit difficult to handle is we were, rebuilding the Salesforce system at the same time we were integrating TaroWorks. So there was a whole migration from the sandbox to the system. And that was in TaroWorks as well as Salesforce. So that created some challenges where the tablets were already at the school and we wanted them to practice with the tool in the sandbox before they were migrated into the live system. So I think those sort of changes at school level sometimes become, they have to be well managed. So migration from sandbox to production, or any changes in the jobs or edits to the job. So if I would do it all over again, I would look at trying to do that, manage that process a bit more smoothly. And I think that we'll see that in our scale up. But when we had a lot of moving pieces at one time, with the rollout of this last year, which meant we were juggling a lot and trying to manage that communication with the schools as well, while not wanting to confuse them already, since the technology was new.
Great.
Yeah, and
That's
also
helpful for
maybe
me.
just to add on, I think the rollout process, I mean, rolling out at the same time across all the 3 countries was a bit stressful. I think if we probably started country by country, and maybe so that if we learn lessons from one country, and it would be much easier to add on another country. But I think we started all the 3 countries at the same time, and responding to queries and troubleshooting issues was a bit quite involving.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thanks for sharing your thoughts and insights. This is super great for me to see, and hopefully the audience is walking away with lots of great insights too. So Alicia, Lawrence, and Hetile, thank you so much. And thanks to the audience.
Thanks, Elaine. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.